Alright, welcome back to Mr. Postframe. Today's video is going to be part 2 of our radiant heat system install. Our control board arrived. We're going to get that installed and we're going to get hooked up to our manifolds, get the expansion tank installed. But before we get going, guys, we design Barndominiums all over the country, so if you're interested in designing your own post frame building, Barndominium, whatever the case is, reach out to us, design at Mr. Postframe. We can help you out. We also have an e-modeler on our website where you can design your own shop or whatever, submit it, and we can get you material list. Also, for you self-builders, we have a patron group that's dedicated just for self-builders where we talk about different topics every month. You get to share your journey with all of the other patrons. It's a really great community of self-builders, so check that out. But let's go ahead and jump into the show. Alright guys, welcome back to the show. This just showed up today, so we're going to start part 2 of the radiant heat system, and this is all my controls and everything, so let's go ahead and get it unboxed. Alright guys, look at that. Looks good. Looks good, looks good. Well, I'm going to finish getting this all unpacked, and then hopefully my wife and I can carry it in. We'll take a better look at it. So that will give me something to set this on once I get it in here. That way my wife and I won't have to bear the weight of that. So we'll get it in here and get it set up on this ledge, and then we'll get it screwed level, perfectly leveled and screwed up here. And I might have to adjust it back and forth, left to right, depending on what I want. So I'm going to get another screw to put in here just to be safe, and then we'll go bring it in. You alright?
Yeah.
Lean the top against the wall.
Okay.
Okay, slide it up.
Okay.
Start moving. There we go.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get it someplace. Alright, let down.
Okay.
Alright, come right here. Just right like that.
Okay.
You alright?
Yep. Very good.
Yeah. I think my wife needs to get in the weight room.
I do.
Alright, just push, hold there
Okay.
and there. You got it?
Yep.
Sure.
Yes.
Alright. Looks awesome.
Looks amazing. Is that really all that's going to hold it up there?
Well, I'm going to put more screws in it, but
Yeah.
I gotta find my level. I just want to know how many of you are at home sitting there trying to help us lift that from your seat. I can tell you, from my perspective, that was a little painful to watch, but we got it done. I went ahead and put 4 screws in each wall stud, so this thing would be good and solid. Alright, now that we got that up there, we're going to go ahead and mount the expansion tank. The expansion tank that the setup has is a Amtrol EX30, and I got this bracket for it to hold it. So I'm going to kind of get up there. I got a hose that comes off. I got to see how far that reaches up, and we'll get this all mounted.
Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the bracket and the expansion tank where I want it, make sure the hose reaches. Then I'll put the expansion tank down and I'll mount that bracket into a wall stud. I think that tank weighs about 20 pounds and it will accept up to like 2.5 gallons. So if you're using water or glycol, you're going to add another 16 to 20 pounds if that thing's at full capacity. So you want to make sure it is mounted good and solid.
Alright, we got our expansion tank mounted, hooked up. I'll get some clamps to make this look nice and clean. This is basically the controller right here. Pop this off. This here is the brains of the operation. So my thermostats wires will come in here. I have 4 zones, so I'll have 4 different thermostats coming in here, and you can see that it shows you zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, and zone 4. So if it's calling for heat on zone 1, thermostat will tell this that we need heat zone 1, and then it'll turn the corresponding pump on. So I have 2 of the runs where the thermostats are going to be done. I need some more wire, and I need some 3/4 inch pipe, PEX, and a couple fittings. So I'm going to make a run to the store, and we're going to see if we can't get all that collected and get that all hooked up next, and get our thermostats all hooked up. Hopefully I can get all that done today, because I think my boiler's coming tomorrow. So then tomorrow we can work on getting the boiler hooked up. So,
Alright, so I got all my fittings here. I have Teflon tape on all the fittings. They're all brass fittings, and basically what these are is just bushings and 90s, so that I can get my PEX hooked on and headed in the right direction. The manifolds I'm using are 1-inch manifolds, so the bushing was a 1-inch to 3/4 inch reducing bushing, and then I got 3/4 inch PEX connection 90s, and then on the pumps, the connections off of there are 3/4 inch PEX connections. So now all I have to do is take my 3/4 inch oxygen barrier pipe and use PEX crimp rings to attach the manifolds to the corresponding pump and return. My system was designed with all the same size pumps. Asked me a series of questions: where I wanted my pumps located, where I wanted my inlet and outlet located based on where my boiler was going to be, and then built this accordingly. And that's very important, so just make sure whoever's building yours does that. This is going to, by doing it this way, I can assure that no lines are going to cross. Not that that really matters, but I just want a nice, clean install. So we're going to go ahead and get all these hooked up and then go to the next step.
alright guys, all the lines are hooked up. I'm just going to take some of these brackets I bought and hook them up, just to give that a little more stability. I mean, it's pretty strong as it is, but just get them all the returns kind of out the same distance. So I got a support on each one of these. They're nice and sturdy. Probably wouldn't have needed them, but that guarantees that they're gonna stay where I want them. You guys, it's looking pretty nice. To complete this process, I need to get my electric ran, which is just going to be a 20 amp circuit. That'll run both this and my boiler, both of them together.
at most they would ever pull is 15 amps. So I'm good there. And I need to get my thermostats ran in. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to get all that power hooked up and all my thermostat wires hooked up. All right, I got the 2 thermostat wires for the house circuits coming right down through here. That'll be zone 3 and 4. You only need a 2 wires for the thermostat. The third one is if you want to run the thermostat power off of this board, which I do. So I typically run like an 18.8 or an 18.5. So that means there's either 8 conductors or 5 conductors. That way I always have extra wires. So these are 18.8, so I have 5 extra wires. So if I ever break a wire or need another one for some odd reason, I have it. And I usually leave a little loop just so I have some extra if I ever need to change anything here. So I got the 2 house circuits wired in, the thermostats. So I got to run the garage and the man cave one, which those will go up. They'll go up through that hole right there, and they'll drop into the walls. So it shouldn't take me too long to do that. We're going to do that right now. And then I'll have all the thermostats wired. All right, so let's talk about a couple different types of thermostats for in-floor radiant heat. There's 2 kinds. There's the concrete sensing thermostat, and then there is the air sensing thermostat. So what the concrete in-slab thermostat does is you drill a hole in the concrete. There's a sensor that goes into the concrete and actually senses the actual temperature of the concrete slab. The air temperature is just like a forced air furnace where you have an air sensor and it senses the temperature of the air, and that's how it tells the system to turn off or turn on. So I have decided that in the garage I'm going to do a in-slab sensor. So I'm going to drill a hole into the slab, and my thermostat is going to sense the slab temperature and turn the system on or off based on the temperature of the actual slab. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because if I open the door to the garage, a bunch of cold air is going to come in, and if I had an air sensing thermostat, it would turn the system on when the actual slab was the temperature I wanted it to be. So I can avoid that. Now, as far as the man cave goes, I'm going to do a straight air sensor. And then in the house, I'm also going to do, I have 2 zones in the house, and I'm also going to do an air sensing thermostat in there. But I am going to go ahead and put concrete sensors in, wire them up to my thermostat. So if I decide at a later time that I'd rather have the concrete sensor, I have it there and it's done. So once I have the walls drywalled, I'm not going to be able to put the concrete sensor in. Hopefully that information can help you. It makes a lot of sense to me to have a concrete sensor in the garage, being that you're going to be opening and closing the door, and the air temperature is going to change. However, the slab temperature probably won't in the amount of time that you have the door open. You drive in and close it. Just keep that in mind. The nice thing about the thermostats that come with the concrete sensor is you can program them differently. So you can have the thermostat operate off of air temperature, and you can set a set point for the concrete slab itself, and if it drops below that, it'll turn the system on as well, if that makes sense. So the system will run based on the air temperature. However, if the slab would some reason drop below your low set point, it would turn it on. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and wire the house with those concrete sensors as well. All right, for the in slab sensor, you just got to drill a hole slightly bigger than the actual sensor. Make sure it gets down into the concrete. And then all I do is I clean all the excess dust off, and then I silicone that in there so it can't come out, and then you're good to go. All right, guys, so all 4 thermostats are wired up and they are ready to go. So that will end the installation of this board.
All right, guys, so one thing I want to talk about is the in-floor concrete sensor and the air sensor on the thermostat. I've been running this system for a few years now, and I run all of my zones solely on the concrete sensor. And the reason for that is because um, it works more efficiently. If you open doors, that air sensor doesn't kick the unit on unnecessarily. And what I found out, even in our garage, if you open the garage door, drive a vehicle in, and a bunch of cold air rushes in, you close the door, 5 minutes later, the garage feels exactly the same temperature it was before you opened the door. And then you're not, if you're running your air sensor, you're going to kick that unit on, and it might not need to be on. So I found that running it solely off the concrete sensor is what I like to do, and I find it's the most efficient. So as far as the concrete sensor goes, questions I get is, should that be installed prior to the concrete being poured or after? You can do either or. It's kind of personal preference. What I like to do is do it after the concrete is poured, and I drill a hole in the wall below where my thermostat's going to be, and then I can set it down in there and keep it in there with some adhesive. So that's that. Next video is going to be the boiler install. That's going to be part 3, so stick around to check that out. As always, we appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends, and we will catch you on the next video.